One of the most common questions that we get asked anytime we tell our story is, what is it like being married to your business partner? All the time we get asked that. I feel like anytime I say, yeah, my husband and I run No Baked full time, the immediate question is, how is that for your marriage? How do you guys do that? Is that the case for you too?
Yeah, yeah. I think it's like quite common actually, like running a business with your spouse,
Yeah.
but the people that have never like seen it before, or experienced it, or whatever, they can sometimes have like a preconceived notion, depending on like if their marriage is trash. But
Yeah.
also, like your parents are married and
Yeah.
run a business together, so you've seen firsthand how it can be like not great.
Yep.
Uh, but but with ours, it's not bad. I don't think not yet.
Yeah. So I figured I would kind of start by telling you guys how this even came to be. I think at some point we'll do a podcast episode on like the beginning of No Baked and kind of the founding story and everything. But just to give you background on how Jimmy and I became business partners, I started No Baked in March of 2017. And at that point in time, Jimmy and I were dating. Um, I was working a full time job prior to starting No Baked. Jimmy was working a full time job, and we already lived together. So when I started No Baked, it was very much already a team effort. I quit my job a day after launching No Baked, and Jimmy was still working, but pretty much immediately he was involved. He would go to work during the day, and then come to the kitchen with me right after. So
Yeah, and I never got paid.
he would work for free. He donated his time.
Yeah,
Um, well, technically, you got paid by owning half the company.
yeah, but is that
So
through marriage or through my
that's a
time?
good question. I'm not sure. So anyway, March 2017, the company launches. For the next couple of months, we start doing pop-up shops and selling online. That was pretty much the whole entire business at that point. And then at sometime during those couple of months, we decided that we were going to open a storefront. So all of our customers had been asking, when are you going to open a storefront? When will we see more flavors? Things like that. And so we kind of decided, like, yeah, I think opening a storefront is the next step. But I pretty much knew immediately that I was not going to open a storefront by myself, like just me running No Baked.
Yeah, I
So,
think you have the problem that a lot of kids have, which is that they just like don't dream
yeah.
like big.
Yeah, no, I didn't have a big vision. At the time of starting No Baked, I wanted to replace my music industry salary. So I wanted to make 30 grand a year. Like that was my goal. And beyond that, I didn't have a plan. I never made a business plan. I didn't think about what No Baked could become. I just didn't want to have to stay at my job. And I think Jimmy kind of had a vision as soon as he saw that people liked the product. Um, he wasn't like me, someone that would go to the fridge and grab cookie dough and eat it. But once he saw that there were people like me who wanted to buy cookie dough, he kind of had this great vision and let his mind go wild with possibilities. So,
Yeah, you got to dream a little bit. So
yeah, when the time
we'll see.
came to try to open a storefront, it was pretty much like, okay, we both have to do this. Like, we both have to be all in on this and we can do it together. And
Yeah, I mean, if I
that's what
remember
happened.
correctly, I just quit my job eventually because I was like, I'm done with this shit. Um, no offense, old job, but you sucked. I was checked out from the time I started working there, so it's fine. And that's a long, long story, but like, yeah, I mean, we both, if I remember correctly, we started looking for spaces in like June of 2017.
Yeah.
So we were like super gung ho on it. Whereas there's a lot of other people I see out there who are like, we're gonna start a food truck, or we're gonna like do some farmers markets. We're gonna start slow and steady. And there's no right way or wrong way that I've seen. Obviously, people do everything at their own speed. But I think being young and being the type of person that I pushed us toward that goal faster than like you were comfortable with. And then also faster than like, most human beings would be comfortable with. And I think to this day, that's probably like one of the few talents that I have, is to like be like, hey, we're gonna sell like $1 billion of stuff, and like here's how we're gonna do it, and like we're gonna do it fast. And like I think that there's like bad things that happen when you're like that. Definitely need someone to check you, because operationally, and it's funny that I do a lot of operations now, so now I know that like physically those things are typically not possible. But then when I have conversations with people who would like home manufacture for, I'm always like, yeah, so like, well, if we get this piece of equipment, it takes this long, and like here's the fastest we could like scale this thing up to like wherever, it's like the moon. Like specific, like I was talking to someone yesterday about like making like making a dry mixing plant for like
Yeah.
baking mixes and stuff like that. um and they were like, wait, you're talking about like the scale version, right? And I was like, yeah, like not now. They were like, because like we're not selling truckloads of baking mix. It's true. But you have to like think down the road to like where you want to go, because a lot of people, they assume that the challenge is like getting off the ground, the challenge is like making the MVP, the challenge is like doing all this other stuff, when really the challenge actually hasn't even started. So the real challenge is if it all goes well.
Yeah.
If nothing goes well at all, there's no challenge whatsoever. Like, you just have to stay alive, like, and go get a job. If everything falls apart, it's not like the biggest deal in the world. The worst thing that can happen is that everything goes really, really well, and you're the kind of clown that has no plan and no way of harnessing this wonderful opportunity that you've been given. Um, that always makes me sad. And like, I don't think we did the best job of it. We did the best job we could.
Yeah.
And we
did
grew
the best
very,
job
very
we knew
quickly.
how to do at the time.
Yeah. And like operationally, I think we could have executed better. We could have had like more experienced team members, but
Yeah.
those people sometimes slow you down because
Yeah.
they're not like all in.
Yeah. So all that to say, Jimmy was kind of hopping into No Baked with a grand vision of like, here's where we can take it next. And I wanted that. I liked that. And I needed someone who was there to do that, because I just wasn't doing that. And so we started working together. We had become engaged at that point. So we knew we were going to get married.
Yeah, we got engaged back in like May.
Yeah, May of 2017.
2017, yeah.
And then we had planned a wedding for June of 2018. So in between getting engaged and getting married, we opened more storefronts, grew very quickly.
Yeah.
And I don't think we really had any disagreements about what we were doing at that point.
No, it's really easy to agree when everything's going really well. I think the first time we had like major disagreement was when the wheels started to fall off. And also around like little details. I think there's things that you at the time were like making a big deal about, or I was making a big deal about, that we don't even remember.
Yeah.
That we fought about that don't apply anymore. But I don't think any of that ever affected our personal relationship.
Yeah.
Because we were just arguing, we weren't fighting, which we were very good at. Still are very good at arguing.
Yeah. So the wheels coming off, I would say when things started to shift business wise, probably after we had multiple storefronts and franchises open. During that time, there were some things, like some issues, like our franchise salespeople being super sketchy and us not wanting to work with them anymore. Like there were some challenges, but none that we were in disagreement on or like thought about. Like I feel like running the company, we were pretty much on the same page, and
we were on the same page until it became kind of obvious that we didn't know what we were doing. So like, if you remember correctly, like we franchised.
Yeah.
And then we decided that we wanted to open the stores because we would make more money. And we were like, why are we letting other people open these stores when we should just be opening them? And then we opened more stores, and then that didn't necessarily go very well. And then we just kind of kept making bad decision after bad decision, and then began to blame each other for those bad decisions, which is probably a dumb idea in hindsight. Even if you have like a normal business partner, you shouldn't
Yeah.
necessarily like throw blame for decisions, especially at a startup, because everyone is supposed to be experimenting anyways and like seeing like what works. And it's why one of the things that I despise the most about CPG is that people constantly want like strong data to make a decision when the best products are things that consumers didn't even know they wanted.
Yeah.
Um, as seen by like Apple's iPhone, like the strongest products just don't exist. There is no market, there's no data, there's no research that shows that people want to do a certain thing. You just are making a calculated bet. And so a lot of those bets are small, and they should be small, but like maybe we were like gambling a little too hard at the time on like random things like opening new stores.
Yeah.
Assuming that that was going to like fix everything, when really the underlying problem was we needed to like change business models. And that probably affected like our personal relationship more than anything else since then.
Yeah.
Because every married couple knows that when you fight, you like to bring up things, especially women love to bring up things that you did like 5, 7, 10, 9, 100 years ago. And those things specifically can like really get on your nerves, and then you will respond in kind with some nonsense that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So like someone will say something that offends you, and then you'll decide to overreact, which as many men do in a defensive manner. I don't know if there's like psychology behind that. That's all
Probably.
anecdotal. There's no science here, just bro science. So yeah, I think that probably is like the thing that's put like the most stress. Like we have had a lot of pivots as a business and a brand, and a lot of other small businesses may or may not have any pivots at all. You may not have to like iterate if you're not doing a startup.
You just stay the way you are.
Yeah, and if you're doing that, then like you're not gonna have a lot of mistakes. You have more and more mistakes the more you have to iterate on something. The more you're going from 0 to 1, the more you're probably gonna fail, because that's part of the learning. And so yeah, that kind of sucks, because you have to be able to make sure you don't use those things as like ammunition against your partner. But I think every married couple deals with that. Like what I'm describing is like a common issue.
Yeah.
That has nothing to do with running a business together. It just allows us to like spend so much more time together that we have like more ammunition to be like, hey, remember that time that you messed up really bad, and it's all your fault.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that's probably the only thing that's caused issues.
Yeah. So fast forward from, when we were opening storefronts, when COVID hit, we did a pretty hard pivot to first focusing on e-com and then focusing on getting into grocery stores. And that's where we are right now today. We have our storefronts that are still operating, but the focus for growth is getting into retailers and wholesaling our product instead of selling direct to consumer. So when Jimmy talks about those pivots, that's really what he's talking about. COVID.
Yeah, you like move from like the shops to franchising the shops, back to the shops, back to e-commerce, from e-commerce to grocery. And then there's all the different grocery channels, as many of you are listening to this know, that you could pick. You could go into the natural channel, the conventional channel. You could go into C-stores. You could go into the GoPuffs and DoorDashes of the world, which is like instant delivery, and then lots of other things.
Yeah.
Like lots of pivots, lots of like trying to figure out like what actually works and like what's not worth your time. Or just straight up doesn't work and loses money, like e-commerce.
Mm-hmm. So today, present day, Jimmy and I run the company, and we're focused on getting into grocery stores. How would you describe our two separate roles?
Oh, today?
Yeah, like what you do and what I do.
Yeah, so a long time ago, I think in September of 2021, I started to like really think about like my role as like titleless, because of the way that like founders have to constantly kind of like change and morph and do everything. And so like I think the way we've divided responsibilities has been very similar to that. It's really hard to put like a title on either of our roles.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, what is
There's
your
just
role?
a lot of crossover.
Yeah. It's like today you handle like sales. A year
Yeah.
ago, I handled most sales.
I think the overall pattern, even since the very beginning, has kind of been me overseeing the creative, like marketing, product,
Yeah, for sure.
events, brand type stuff.
Yeah.
And you have always been the operational, the function,
Yeah,
how
I
is
think
this
that's
going to
kind of like
work?
by like personality design
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, like I felt as though if you were to liken like Nobic to a musical artist or like the organization to like a band, I guess, like I'm a little bit more like the manager and you're a little bit more like the lead singer.
Yeah.
And I think the reason that that came true was because you were in the driver's seat on the creative. Not to say I'm not like a creative person. Okay, obviously, like that's kind of where my brain goes. So I'm not the greatest operations person. But I think like I felt as though I was kind of in a place or a role of responsibility to like empower the thing that you were building, not necessarily to like change it.
Yeah.
The same way that I think like a good salesperson is like given an item, like a really, really good product, and then they like sell it. They don't necessarily like try to change the item. They just like sell the item. So I think that's kind of like where our roles came from. I don't know if it's even personality like that makes matches because like what actually matches even more would be like you doing operations and me not because you're more I don't want to say you're more detail oriented because that's not true, no
No.
offense. uh you're just a little bit more like logical.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily, which I don't know if that takes when you're running ops for a startup. That's really kind of a downside. Like you don't want to be logical because then you start saying things aren't possible that are perfectly
Yeah. I
possible.
think honestly, I think the reason why we're in the roles that we're in is kind of like we've pushed each other to be in those roles, or
Yeah.
maybe I've pushed us to be in those roles because I just like honestly, I'm not a hard enough worker to do the stuff that you do. Like, I would be the person where,
Well, yeah. I mean, if you were to assess us both as like entrepreneurs,
yeah,
I'm not going to see you as like a solo founder anytime soon.
no. And I think that's the reason why you had to come on with me initially anyway, because I did not have the same thing in me that you have.
So you weren't a sociopath.
No, yeah, I truly like
You're not a
I
completely unadjusted
no,
human
I
being.
do not have the ability to be on all the time, and Jimmy does. Like when I say that he could be working 24/7, he really
For
could
many
be.
decades, I could do that for many decades, and I would
Yeah.
enjoy it.
And so I think when it came to, initially expanding and having this grand vision, I wouldn't have had it. And then when it came to further along, even where we are now, like you will not find me in front of a spreadsheet mapping something out for more than 3 months. And it's like you have a year worth of financial
2 years,
projections.
dude. 2 years with
That's my point.
multiple
You've got
models.
like you will,
But that's also, I think that speaks to like personality.
yeah,
Also, like I said, you wouldn't be the best operations person
yeah,
either. Like, and neither would I. I hate it. I actually despise that spreadsheet. I despise spreadsheets in general. I don't like those jobs. I'll do them, but
yeah,
I'll by choice rather like do something like work on like a manufacturing problem or like
right,
try to figure out how to bake or create a new product or like figure out how to do business development, like go and like create a new business vertical for the company. Those are
yeah,
the things I actually like doing.
yeah,
I don't like doing mundane planning. But planning is really important if you're going to dream, in my mind, like you have to dream logically. You
yeah.
can't just be like, we're going to do 12 million in sales and then
And
have absolutely no first principles reasoning behind it.
yeah, and in most places in life, I'm a very logical person, but when it comes to no baked, I think I just have never seen a plan happen before. And because of that, I'm like, I will take everything that's written down with a grain of salt, and I will just try my best to grow the brand.
Yeah, it just helps you prepare for resources like, square feet of manufacturing space, where your
Yeah.
distributors are, who you're selling to, where to
Right.
buy the products from, what to tell the suppliers that you need to buy because they want you to tell them like a year in advance.
Yes. So that's why you're here, to map that
Yeah.
stuff out.
What investors need to give us for cash.
And I am here.
Megan's like, plans don't make sense, and then everybody else wants her to plan.
But what I like to do is figure out where the brand fits and where our customers go, where our customers want to see the brand, not just in the grocery stores, but like, where can we do events? What kind of events can we do at our shops?
You're also, like, to be honest with you, like a little bit more of a perfectionist, which this is a good thing. Like, you're more of a perfectionist for the brand and for like the execution of each individual step or item. And that's super important quality in an entrepreneur that my spineless ass seems to not have figured out yet. I'm getting there. I think it's like really important to be kind of a dick about like what it is you want and how you want it done, because, and this is something you do really well, you have to be like, hey guys, I want the scoops to look this way and be presented this way, and the cookie dough to be talked about this way when you're walking into our scoop shop. I want customers to leave in a certain way. I want them to have a good experience. I want the store to be clean, as in like 100% clean all the time, like no stuff anywhere. And these are simple asks, but then people attempt to like gray area it.
Yeah.
Like the scoop is just a little smaller this time, or like, they're all dairy free, or like whatever it is that the people want to say that day or do. Yeah. And I think as a really, really good entrepreneur, especially 0 to 1, like you build a new product that has never existed before, you have to be a dick, like an absolute horror to be around, to make sure that the product is executed the way that you want, because you're the one bringing it into the world. It's like your baby.
Yeah. And so in the very beginning with the storefronts, I was pretty like micromanaging because I wanted things to be a certain way. Like,
you also worked every single day.
Yeah. Well, that's because I couldn't let go of control. I worked every day in the store because I thought, nobody else will ever care as much as I do, which I still think is the case, but it obviously wasn't sustainable for me to be in there. So since then, that is one place where I do handle like the operational type things. Like, I do emphasize how important it is for the stores to be operating the way that I want them to.
Yeah.
The presentation of them, the people who are working there, like everything. And I now am the same way with our jars that are going to grocery stores. Like, we've had instances where, our seals are just not working well. We are solving the problem, but like we haven't to date. And
yeah, the heat seal clearly is not great. The pressure seal is not great. The jar,
they're not consistent. And so I am still the person kind of there being like, the quality's not there. Like, I don't care about the steps that have to be taken to make the quality there. I need the quality there. And I think that does come from the product being my baby. Like, these are my recipes, it's my branding.
Yeah, and that speaks to like where your role has kind of like gone to. And like also where like I would like to drive the brand, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you were to build this thing that we're trying to build, where like if No Baked was the first like restaurant, like scoop shop native brand that we took into CPG, then like the next one you would also want someone like yourself to be so focused on like the product and the quality and like the brand and how you sell it and where you sell it, that like that you're gonna have success. Because you can do everything right from an ops perspective or from planning, and none of it goes right. Like none of it goes right, and one of the main reasons it doesn't go right is there isn't that person there that actually cares. There's a lot of people that will launch brands and they'll launch it as a side project, or they'll launch it from a place of trying to do what everyone else is doing. And you see this a lot from the big CPGs, mostly, not from like individual people.
Right.
You can launch a new product and think that it's going to work because of market research, but there's just no driver inside of the business. And there's no like person who's the champion of the brand, I assume. who has enough power or say
Yeah.
to like really drive it forward in a like perfectionist mindset.
Yeah. So typically, the first thing I say when, well, not always the first thing, but one of the points I make when people ask, like, how is it running a business with your husband? Like, I do make the point that we have different roles. Like, we
Yeah.
have taken on different responsibilities, and there's a ton of overlap, but there's not a lot of stepping on toes. Like, the overlap is the fact that I like if we make decisions together, like you would let me make a lot of the decisions, but it's always better when we're making the decisions together, when both of our input has been put in. And because of that, there's not a lot of stepping on toes. There's not a lot of, crossing into the other person's duties and like messing things up.
Yeah, these are also a lot of problems that you end up running into with any pair of founders.
Yeah, the same goes for co-founders that aren't married. They're in their own professional marriage, but I think the reason why it works for us is because we're like that, because we have kind of found our own spaces that we operate within,
Definitely.
and that we want each other's inputs when making decisions. And I think that has to do with us being married.
Yeah, I would too, and I would say that like there's studies on this, and somebody wrote an article about it, which we should have had pulled up for this
I can link it.
podcast. Jamie,
It'll
no,
be linked. Don't worry.
it'll be linked. There is an article about how married co-founders are more resilient than, as far as like not breaking up, than just traditional co-founders, and I think communication is a big part of that.
Yeah.
Because like a lot of people will say like, well, how do you deal with not turning it off? Like you guys are just in your other face at home and all this stuff. I don't know if any of you guys have had a co-founder or if you've ever had like a business partner or been an entrepreneur, but you will call them at 1 a.m.
Yeah.
That's not like there is no turning off. Like it's not really something that I've ever been asked by like an actual like, I've been asked by a few other entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
But it's usually someone who's like, oh, like if it was my wife, maybe it would be different. But it's like,
or it's
no,
someone who doesn't have a co-founder.
That's true. It's fair.
Them.
But that's also like the type of person that's just like, they're out on their own, they're doing their thing.
Yeah.
They don't need partners. Which I think like there's other research on this as well. Like you're a lot more likely to succeed as a team of 3 than as a team of anything else. And like there's a reason that it's really important to get really good at communicating with other people, really good at delegating, and really good at like task sharing. And also, like you said, it is nice if we like make decisions together, but at the end of the day, one person had to make the decision.
Yeah.
It's not a group. There's no such thing as a group decision. There's one person who pulls the trigger.
Yeah.
And so every job responsibility has to kind of fall to a human, and that one human and their one brain can take everybody's input at the company, ideally, like every employee, and then make the decision regardless. But I think my point is that like none of that has to do with being married. And I think that that's the overthinking that a lot of people make. I think our marriage is only a strength, probably.
Yeah.
In terms of like communication, vibe.
Yeah.
And like understanding like how you're probably going to react to certain situations. Like I know how you would make decisions about certain things just because like we kind of know each other really well.
Yeah, so you bring up communication, and I really think that through running No Big together, we have gotten a lot better at communicating. I think when you're just married to someone, there are times when you don't have to communicate with them. Like if you have something that you want to discuss or something that's, a decision needs made, you're not necessarily forced to communicate about it. And a lot of people in like struggling marriages don't. They just ignore whatever it is.
They love to ignore shit.
Right.
I have a great example for you. It
just festers. And my point is that because of No Big, in a business, you have to make decisions. You cannot continue operating a business without making those decisions, without fighting it out, without settling on something.
And without, like, you can't, like, hide shit from the other person. That's impossible.
Yeah, it's all out there. You're making the decision. You're fighting it out. You're coming to some kind of agreement. And I think because we've been forced to do that with no baked, it automatically carried into our marriage.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think it was a huge benefit and something that not all married couples get to.
For
Like, they don't
sure.
get to
Yeah,
that point.
we're definitely like a lot better with money than like most married couples because of that.
Yeah.
I talk to a lot of people who like people who are like getting married, like Jimmy, like, you know, like your friend, they'll be like, hey, like, how do you do this? How do you do like money, like whatever. I'm sure a lot of other people who are married, like you'll get that question from your unmarried friend that's like getting engaged or something. Um, like they just like are curious. And like for me, I'm always like, yeah, I'll be in a room with a group of other guys and I'll hear other guys say absurd things like, oh, well, like I don't tell my wife about like that one because like she's gonna freak out if she finds out I bought a new pair of like skis, or like she finds out I bought the dirt bike that I keep at like this other place, or like whatever. If you were buying things from your business and you didn't tell your co-founder and you were just like, you know, neglecting to tell them on purpose because you knew they'd be upset, that's it's probably fraud or something. It's illegal.
Yeah, some form of embezzlement
at some
like,
point it's not, well, it's not embezzlement unless it's like personal stuff, but you get the point. Like,
Yeah.
it's not, you can't
do it.
like if I was the CFO of a big company, I can't just go randomly buying shit and not tell the board. I can't like just be like, oh, we bought a building. Like,
Yeah.
sorry, like building is huge. Yeah, you can't do that kind of stuff. And I think then I end up always like throwing in like this like what sounds like I'm an old person advice, which is like, oh, you gotta like tell each other about everything. Like, make sure you have a good communication. But I'm always like, I never had the option to not tell you about stuff because our finances are entangled in a way that's like, it doesn't detangle. It can't detangle. Like, we're permanently tangled together.
Yes.
We have the same employer technically.
Yeah.
It's like we know where all the money is, where it's going, how much we're getting paid, where things are being spent, because it's just like full transparency all the time.
Yeah.
And some people are just uncomfortable with transparency. And I would also say the hot take of, if you're uncomfortable sharing money with your spouse, you don't trust your spouse.
Yeah.
Which is a problem.
Yeah, I think
like I'm no therapist, but like you might have some issues that you need to take care of.
Yeah, so our communication obviously is great because of running a business together. Finances are definitely something that I would bring up too, which you already have brought up. But that's usually the leading cause of divorce, you know?
Not anymore.
Oh, really? What is it now?
You can link to it. I don't remember.
Oh, I'm surprised.
Finances is like number 3.
I'm surprised something passed that up.
I'm going to Google it. Oh, wait, I'm on my phone. It's recording me.
Yeah, we don't have access.
Jamie.
We do have an
It's
Alexa, but she would probably say something.
Alexa.
Oh.
Sorry, I'm having trouble understanding right now. Please try a little later.
I want to say something I can't say. Okay.
Okay, so anyway, as I was saying, regardless of what number it is, money is always on the top reasons of why people get divorced. And it is just like, it's understandable for a lot of reasons. You know, money is hard, first off.
It definitely adds stress. Like we are probably in worse off spot.
Yeah.
Because our income is tied to the same source.
Definitely.
So like the lack of diversification, which again, like we have a lot of risk-taking behavior that we have in our lives. Because of
that, because of the fact that it's tied together and it's coming from the same place, we don't have the blame that some other couples have. Like, for example,
like you're the reason we're poor.
Yeah. If you're, let's say you're the man of the house and your wife is not working, and you know she's a stay-at-home mom or whatever the case may be, and
that lady shops at Target every fucking day. Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Well, if money's hard, then the blame is gonna fall on the guy. But also, if the guy wanted his wife to be a stay-at-home mom, the blame's gonna fall on both of them, and she's gonna resent him because he doesn't make enough money for them. And
yeah, I mean that could go so many like weird toxic ways.
There's
like
a circle of blame.
You don't make enough money. I don't make it. Well, that's also, I think that's actually reflective of a deeper issue, which is that most couples don't feel like they're a team.
Yeah, no.
Um,
That's most married couples that I know, especially ones our age, don't.
we
Especially
have a
where
very,
we live in
we have a very
Nashville.
like individualistic society.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is the traditional couples that I know, the men are definitely not telling their wives where the money is going. They're just saying like, "Let me take care of spending the money," and then there's gonna be some kind of resentment
Well, that's not necessarily.
around that.
I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I'll tell you why. Like, I think if you're talking about like money flows, but we like share the same account, but like one person's the money person, like, yeah, I think both people should probably be educated on where the money's going. But like, you know this as well as I do. Like, all the cash management and No Baked is you. It's
Yeah.
not me. Like, I don't manage cash. I do all of the like actual like bookkeeping. We split those jobs up on purpose because that's how most companies do it. There's a different person that manages cash, a different person that does the books, a
Yeah.
different person that pays people, so that now one person is like actually hung with the entire job, because you'll get decision fatigue and lose your mind. But I think that that's not like necessarily a bad thing. It becomes toxic if people start attaching like blame to it or something,
Yeah.
which is ridiculous. Like,
But I think that's what can happen in marriages.
yeah,
And I think that's the reason why money is such a big cause of divorce. I
true.
think there can be resentment attached to it because of decisions that were made along the way.
Yeah, if one person makes a bad financial decision and it sinks like the entire couple, they can
Yeah.
get pretty upset. But we're open to
Like,
the
how do you
same kind
come
of
back
risk.
from that? We are, yeah.
If I make a really bad decision for No Baked and No Baked went bankrupt, you'd probably like, I didn't kill myself. That's all I'm saying. Right?
Yeah.
Like,
You didn't.
but I might be dead. Yeah, I think that like, yeah, you run that risk no matter who you are.
Yeah.
I think that is again dependent. It's regardless of if you run a business together or not. You have to like feel like you're on the same team. You have to communicate,
Yeah.
and you
I
have
think
to
the
make sure that
communication
stuff's
factor
working.
comes into play with the finances, but I do think the fact that we're forced to share all of the financial burden and decisions and even the benefits when they come, that really changes the dynamic. Like, there is no like push and pull between us because we're on an equal level of income and work and everything.
Yeah, you feel like you've contributed as much. That I think that matters for some people a little bit more.
Yeah.
There are some people that are okay, like, mentally, where they can be like, we're both part of this team, whether or not we were both like working there
Yeah.
or whatever it is. Because that's how I feel personally, is that like most families at the end of the day need to figure out how they can be like, oh, we're on the same team. Like, why would you fight with your team? That doesn't make literally any sense. It's just
Yeah.
stressful and stupid. But people are people and they have emotions and all this like nonsense that goes along with it. And I think those things are exacerbated, like you said, you mentioned, like if good things happen, like if you have a lot of money. I think no one really talks about how that can like toxically affect someone,
Yeah.
but it definitely can. Like if you have a bunch of cash or you have an exit and then you suddenly your life is like completely different. Um, and this is speaking not from my own personal experiences, but from like people I've seen, like those things can inherently like cause serious emotional trauma
Mm-hmm.
uh, in fighting. That's a lot worse than the fighting that you have when you're on the rock bottom.
Yeah.
Because at rock bottom, I've felt like, let's take like COVID for example, and you can like answer this, but like, didn't you feel like we were more aligned than ever right when the pandemic started? We knew exactly what to do.
Yeah, but
We're
that's
out of money.
you can see that anywhere. Right after 9/11, all Americans were loving each other.
Yeah, when you hit
It's like,
rock bottom,
when you're at the very lowest you can be, that's when you're like on the same page.
Yeah.
When you're at the top, that's
when
like,
the
you're
fighting.
right.
That's when the
not
fighting
at
begins.
all. Yeah, that's when it can really start to crumble.
Yeah, and that's how it's been for us. Like on the way
Yeah.
up, like the fighting ramps up. Like if things are going better and better and better, everyone has different ideas and directions
Yeah.
where they want to take things.
Things can get crazy and there's more possibilities, and that's when things can not
They,
seem
well, they can
great.
all start to be like, yeah, you start to make problems out of problems that don't exist. It's like the opposite of stoicism. It's
Yeah.
fascinating, but I think that like it's why I always am like really not shocked by people who are like the lottery winner spent all the money, they're sad, they killed themselves, like whatever happens, because it's just not really built for like the human mind.
Yeah. So, besides finances, the other thing that I would say, and this is more specific to us than, just anybody out there, especially to you, and this is not like an offensive thing, but I do not think that you could be married at this point in your life to someone that you didn't work with.
I couldn't be married.
Because
the fact I'm married is a miracle.
You are so into working and so into your job. It was like this when we were dating. Whatever job you had, you came home and you talked about it. And
That's true.
it wasn't even that you like loved it, but you're just such a worker. Like it is the root of who you are that you are always talking about it.
Yeah, I think I find a lot of meaning in like adversity
Yeah.
because I have something wrong with me. But that's why I'm training for an Ironman, because I want to hurt myself. So
in a good way.
Yeah.
But you really are like so passionate about whatever you're working on that like you have to be with someone who's also passionate about it, because you need to be able to talk to someone about it.
I agree with that. I think when you see other couples that are entrepreneurs, a lot of the times they're married to another entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Even if it's not the same business.
No, but they're able to carry that passion around.
Yeah, and like the other person's able to understand how psychotic they are.
Yes.
You are like on like the lower end of the spectrum. Like there's a crazy spectrum.
Yeah.
I'm like up there. I'm a little too high on that spectrum where a lot of people can't deal with me. It's even like it becomes apparent when I'm even talking to like anyone about like No Bag to what we're doing and like what I'm passionate about. If they aren't also kind of in it and like they don't feel as though like they're not an entrepreneur. This is like the simplest way of putting it. Or they don't own like their own business or something. Even if they do own their own business, sometimes they have a hard time relating to what I'm saying, and I can see it in their eyes. And I get real tuned out with whatever it is they're passionate about that day of the week. Like if you want to talk to me about like this cool new like boat that you saved up for and bought and your job, I'm just like, that's not really what I'm into right now. No offense to those people. I think it's awesome. I think that I have this thing where like all I want to talk about is creating, like building things. I don't really care about like the consumption of shit. And I think that's a trait that like that's the easiest way to describe it. People don't really get that. They're like, I want to like go home and watch this show. I want to go to this concert. I want to eat this food. I want to consume things. Like I want to like sit down with my friends and like talk about like our businesses. This sounds so boring, but like I want to talk about like business ideas, right? Or like my friend will have like a new hobby. Like one of my like close friends is like he brought over like brick oven pizza that he's been trying to like figure out how to make to our house for the Super Bowl. And like that to me, and like that's the kind of passion where I'm at. Like my hobbies are like training and like baking and like cooking, and like I like to build things or even like building. Like I love building stuff. I built our bus. That's where how my brain is wired.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a healthy thing. I think for most humans it would be healthy if you had a little bit more create in your life and a little less eat, consume. But you're on the lower end of that spectrum. So like maybe you could be married to a normal person. I would run them off and they'd hate me. And if it was the type of, and then people would like suggest, I'm on a rant, but like if they would suggest, not talking.
Well, you're giving them the perfect example.
I know, but if you were not suggesting, like people will suggest, hey, Jimmy, like, yeah, you could be married to like another like crazy entrepreneur, maybe a little less crazy, but she gets it because she sees what you're doing and she's the same way. Megan has a farm that she's farming. So like there's like people want to build things, right? Like and you want to take a lot of risk.
Yeah.
Other people would be really like their stomach would hurt with how much risk that you want to take. Like we bought Dogecoin. At one point, we owned $25,000.
We bought it when it was at
of
like
Dogecoin.
just a couple
It
of
was
cents.
5 cents. We bought 25,000. Can you imagine telling your wife you're going to buy a dog coin and you're going to spend 10 grand? And then she was like, I'll one up you.
We didn't do that though.
Yeah, we didn't. Well, at one point, I
You
remember.
did want to spend 10 grand.
I
And
did.
I was like, no.
No, you checked me.
Yeah.
We did buy a significant amount of it. The Dogecoin bought our house. It was the down payment for our house. So
Okay,
it wasn't
but
a lot
to
of money.
circle back around.
Circle back around. Okay, people will suggest, hey Jimmy, why don't you why don't you do the thought exercise of like, what if you married a like trophy wife? Like
Nobody has suggested this, by the way.
I know, but like think about this.
If you're
They're
wondering, like, is someone suggesting that Jimmy marry someone else? The answer is no.
No. But the thought exercise, think about this. I'm proposing that I couldn't be married to anyone except another crazy entrepreneur. Or they divorced me, or I wouldn't even be married right now. I have other friends that are single that are doing what we're doing. They're not getting married anytime soon. And we all know why. Because all we do is work. But you work with me. I think that like the flip side of that is people will suggest, like, what if she just doesn't care? Like she'll listen to you rant and like blah, blah. And if you're a girl entrepreneur, he will listen to you rant. He'll chill. He'll do whatever. He's just like a Labrador, to make this less sexist since everyone will get offended. But like your husband, if you're an entrepreneur like me and you're a woman, is a Labrador retriever. He's a clown. Like he's just like kind of hot, like, but just, he doesn't have a lot of thoughts. That's not going to work because all you want to do is talk. And I don't want you to sit there and listen.
Also, the other person does not want to listen to you because that's how we were when we were first dating.
Yeah, but you're not.
I did not want to listen to you rant about something.
Yeah, but you're not like
about.
airheady. I mean, like you want someone who's going to interact.
Yeah, and engage. With
it. Like I want the other person to talk back at me.
Yeah.
And like say things that like make my brain think.
Right.
Like I want to hear you come home and be like, hey, did you know? And then talk about something interesting.
Yeah. So anyway, what I'm trying to say though is that it would not work if we were not working together. Like right now at this point in our lives.
I don't think it would work for me ever.
Yeah, so that's one of the biggest things. It's like, well, it's fine running a business married because we couldn't do it any other way.
Yeah, and I think if you look at other married entrepreneur couples, they do fall into straight up just those two categories. Like you have people like Sarah Blakely, Jesse Itzler. They met through work, right? This is well known. It's a recounting fact. They met through work because Jesse's trying to sell her private jet membership. She's super rich. He's super rich. They both are super busy. They get it. And like, I guess clicked or something. I don't know them. So like, assuming it just kind of made
Probably
sense.
Something like that.
The Hermosis are like super open about the fact that like they went on their first date and like Alex Hermosi is like ranting about how a froyo shop makes money.
Yeah.
And she's like, then telling him how it makes money. Like just straight up like hitting him with more knowledge than he has. And then it's like, oh wait, like this is the type of person I want to be with.
Yeah.
Another crazy person.
It just makes sense because you can have those conversations.
Yeah. So like then you have them, they run their businesses together, and then you have Sarah and Jesse, and they're completely separate businesses, separate few beliefs, but like they get it. Like they literally usually only follow into these two categories. I'm not saying that there's other people that can't be married to entrepreneurs. I'm just saying I would venture to guess that it's easier and that it works because we work together or because you run businesses that are similar, and like it allows you to like have this like if you weren't an entrepreneur, I would have more camaraderie with people that weren't you.
Yeah.
Which would be weird.
Yeah. I think that's the case with some people.
Yeah.
And that's just their dynamic. But to wrap things up,
you said this episode would be short.
I know. I didn't know. We may have to do another episode.
She forgot who she was married to.
We may have to do another episode where we bring on another couple.
We bring on another married couple.
Together.
I know a lot of other married couples that would come on.
Yeah, because I would like to hear other perspectives. But I think for us, it works and it actually makes me feel better about our marriage.
You gotta get
because,
2 more mics.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um, maybe we'll have a conversation about you going off on side things.
No, that's what makes it fun.
Uh,
Continue.
So I just think it works, and I always tell people that, like, it's fine running a business with my husband. I think we're a better married couple because of it. If people say like, how do you guys turn it off? I just simply say we don't. That's not like 100% the case. Sometimes when it's nighttime and we're with the kids and maybe you want to talk about something no bake related, I will say like, we're going to talk about this after they're asleep. That's mostly because they don't let us get a word in.
That's the kids, yeah. Like
They
that's
do
not
not let
our,
us talk to each other without, you know.
yeah, somehow I don't know if other parents experience this, but when you're trying to have a conversation
They
with your
do.
like
I
spouse,
see memes all the time.
it's weird.
Yeah, as soon as you try to have a conversation,
Why do they start talking?
the kids, I don't know.
To us, specifically,
Yeah.
not even to other. They could talk to each other. They could talk to the wall. They could talk to the
Yeah, I
stuffed
don't know.
animal.
It's a real thing. But we do sometimes turn it off in the way that like we're focused on other things. But
Yeah.
being an entrepreneur, you never turn off work anyway. And you really shouldn't want to. Like if you're running
No.
a business, you are going to check your email on a Saturday. If you have storefronts, you're going to be communicating with your employees. Like these are normal things.
Yeah, we check Slack every day.
Yeah,
all the time.
That's normal, and it doesn't feel wrong. So
it doesn't feel bad either. I think I actually am happier when I work a little bit on each weekend day, because like there's this thing that happens where if you disengage from the thing that you're trying to do with your life, and I would venture to say like if it's your job, you spend so much time there, like that's what you're doing with your life. I mean, if you don't like it, you should probably change it, but that is what you're doing. If you're a stay-at-home parent, like that you are parenting. Like that is your job. That's your purpose. That's awesome.
Yeah.
If you're a business owner, like that's what you're doing. You're in. And business owners and stay-at-home parents don't just like have a day off.
Right.
Like that, which is probably why they like their job more.
Yeah.
And then there are other people who are always talking about like on Sunday, I'm like, and I'm like, well, why?
Yeah.
And like maybe it's because they actually do like their job, but it's just hard to like switch gears all the time.
And
like,
there's a lack of balance. There's a lack of control.
It'd be nicer if it was like you were just working every day.
Yeah. So anyway, all that to say, to wrap it up, it's good that we're married to each other. It's why No Baked works so well, and our marriage also works well at this point. So I feel good about it. That's what I tell people when they ask, and that's my answer to you guys too.
Yeah, for sure. Bye.
There's nothing to cheers with.
Bye.
Cheers.